This time I'll call the Hamilton County Justice Center Jail Project Committee to order. For you that were not here last night, I will go over some details of what we'll be doing tonight. We'll be interviewing today 2 of the 7 vendors for the project manager. Please find in your binders the list of the vendors who have applied. Also, you will find the evaluation criteria sheet. This sheet is for you to evaluate the vendor. Also, please find the evaluation instructions, which I will go over. The vendor will be introduced and given 15 minutes to introduce himself and his experience. I will then be asking 7 questions to each vendor. I would ask commissioners, if you have questions, that you will wait till after I've asked all the questions that we've submitted. So I will then open up the floor for questions from commissioners for the vendor. Evaluation instructions are as follows. Each vendor has a separate section containing their evaluation sheets and their submitted qualifications. Each vendor section contains evaluation criteria form, list of interview questions, qualifications submitted, and reference questions and answers received. Evaluation criteria is broken down into 6 sections with a maximum number of points that can be assigned. These are listed below. I have listed where you can find the information needed to evaluate each section. You will assign points to each section based on the information provided. These evaluation sheets need to be turned in by August 11th, which is a week from today. This time I will turn it over to John Harrell, and she will introduce our first vendor.
So Chris, if you want to come on to the podium. This is Chris Kepper. He's with Volkert.
Thank you all, honorable commissioners and committee. Quickly, I passed out a binder here. I would love to do a PowerPoint presentation, so it's death by PowerPoint and just kind of never put everybody to sleep, but those kind of annoy me too much, so I thought I'd just keep it kind of really plain and simple here. A little bit about myself. I am from a small town in southeast Missouri. Been in Tennessee now for 7 years and lived and worked in projects, construction all my life. Worked in Japan, I worked in Denver, I worked in Houston, Texas, kind of wherever the project was going. I grew up in the industry. My father was an engineer. He put me through all the union trades back in Missouri at the time, so finisher, carpenter, iron worker, just kind of born in my blood. I've loved it ever since. So going through engineering school and paying my way through college by basically doing the trade. So just a little bit about myself, and I still got the calluses on my hands to prove it, but I pick every day, driving my wife nuts, but I just love this field in the construction industry. So I am the vice president of Volkert, and I got a little agenda here, but we were a firm about 1,800 people. We're local. We've got an office in Knoxville, an office in Chattanooga. When I say local, not local to Hamilton County, but in Knoxville, Chattanooga, and our headquarters is in Franklin, Tennessee. We have about 1,800 people in our firm, and mostly infrastructure, heavy highway. I oversee the building vertical aspect of things across the country. I've been tasked with a lot of team of project managers, and this one kind of hits home because we've got a project there in Knoxville that we're doing right now for the county of Knoxville. Very similar to this, only it's just not a justice center, it's county building, administration, courts building. And so this one I would be heavily involved on throughout the entire project. One of our biggest things is that we pride ourselves in being personable and getting with knowing the commissioner, knowing the client. So a project like this is something that we really have a passion with. We've got a lot of justice experience, I would say, a lot of public experience. Myself, I've worked on federal courthouses with heavily security jails, the FBI buildings in the past. So again, the experience is not an issue. But one of the critical aspects of this project and neat aspects is that you've already moved through the big part of the design. And now you're in the construction part. So if you're looking at a cost perspective, if you're hiring a third-party firm to manage, you've already moved past a lot of that cost. So now it's really getting to know and getting to procure the contractor and jumping on the design team as a team along with yourself to really understand your total expectations. So a lot of the cost savings, that was really looked at. is something that is going to be very challenging. I'm quite candid in everything that I say and trustworthy, and I think that's the way to be right off the bat and transparent. So a lot of your VE options and through design, it's going to be kind of a hurdle. And so you got to prepare yourself in this instance. There could be change orders. And I hate that word, change orders, but it's better to just come out in front, and that's what you hire us for, is to battle those change orders with those contractors. And so expecting those change orders, sitting down with the design team, making sure it's meeting the specs, criteria, and then making sure the contractor is doing his job. I mean, we want him to be profitable, but we also want him we got to hold his feet to the fire. And that's what you hire us for, as your trustworthy advocates. So we've got 100% client satisfaction. I can turn over 100% of our references. We've never had a client not ask us to come back unless they just didn't have a project. And currently we're tracking over $400 million in savings. And again, one of the, I thought you were going to say time zone. One of the critical things here is that when you're looking at the savings, is again the challenges, but there's ways and ideas and concepts to come up with this. Again, through past experience in working with the MEP subs, what kind of mortar brick bonds you're going to put in the building. Do they need to be bonded up 6 levels? Can they just be bonded up the first couple levels? Do you need pick-proof caulk for any of the cells? There's different types of versions of that. So a lot of cost savings ideas right after procurement, working with the contractor, is going to help keep this process in budget. With kind of some other things, if you flip through our packet here, is one of the big things, again, is people and community outreach. And I think that by engaging the community, whether you want it electronically, monthly meetings, executive meetings, that's simple. That goes along with the job. But we've in the past created websites for the county and had just construction set up on that website to where people in the community want to see it. They can access the website, and it's high level information, because we don't want to give the county every bit of information, because if you show one problem, then that problem, as you know, could blow up into, oh my gosh, the courthouse is $40 million over budget, and we just talked about some sheet rock. So we just we put on there what the county would like us to put on that website. Another cool thing that I'm really big on is internships, and being part of this community is hiring a local intern that's already included in it, wouldn't be our fee or anything else, but being able to give them a chance to work for a firm like ourselves and walk them through that process. And whether it's a kid in college or a high school kid coming out of or senior coming out of high school, it's an opportunity that he can sit there and work with us and see how we engage as a firm, how we work with the contractors and the architects, and how to not be adversarial. We're going to have problems throughout the job, but again, I haven't crossed the problem in my lifetime being on the job sites since I was born, knowing that how to talk to them, let's get over this hill. Things can get hot and heated, but let's work with not creating an adversarial relationship, because we want all parties to be profitable and move forward. So internship and the community outreach is a big thing. I think it's probably a big thing for you all too, is to make sure, because it's a big investment for this county. And again, I think being able to get out to the community, and whether it's an internship or a full-time position, that's something that I would love to consider or be considered for when you're reviewing my proposal. Other than that, I would love to talk to you about all the processes in construction, but you're through that part, which makes it exciting, because the best part of that construction is the actual building of things. So I would like to hand it over to questions throughout this presentation for anybody that might have questions on cost savings ideas, the persons that will be on the job. One of the persons on the very front page here is Jonathan Grammer. He's my head project manager. He could not be here today because his little 4-year-old had a straw go through his roof of his mouth. And it was just a bad ordeal, he said. It wasn't as serious as it was, but he couldn't make it to the presentation. And again, myself will be heavily involved throughout this process in kicking it off, working with the architect firm, procuring the contractors. Our outreach to get contractor interest is a big thing. The more contractors we get interested, the more competitive bidding that we'll see. So being able to reach out and walk through that procurement process, again, it all drives back to the savings aspect of things. And on through construction closeout, we'll be here from start to finish. Warranty walks, that's a big thing as we're handing over it. Again, my father's a county commissioner now after he retired from an engineering firm. And one big thing he always preaches on is maintenance, how his guys, need to maintain the building. So a picture says 1,000 words. When we're inspecting these jobs, a picture says the same, 1,000 words for what was behind that wall, when the wall was put in. If a change order is coming, then you go back to that picture saying it was date stamped, 30 days ago. You guys didn't have the manpower. The change order for this is not applicable to the county right now. This is on you, Mr. Contractor. So documentation throughout that whole process, especially for the maintenance staff, because after years of warranty, we go through a year warranty walk. After 1 year warranty walk, the maintenance takes over this. So they want to have a good, clear as-built. They want to have pictures, photographs, what details. That way they can maintain that building properly for years to come. And again, I'd love to. I would say this is an informal presentation, but formal because I just do not like doing PowerPoint slides and flipping through the screen. So I'd like to hand that over to any questions you may have.
I have some questions, and then I'll open the floor up to the commission. And if you've already covered these, just excuse me, but first question is, what is your company's understanding of the project manager role as it relates to this project? And I think you've probably covered.
Yeah, the project management is your adversaries through the life of the project. And the life of the project starts from day one and knowing your expectations, a quick team building session, understanding who the commission, the clients really we're talking to, getting your maintenance staff engaged on, kind of a key maintenance guy that really is going to be heading up the building, and then walking through the construction documents, documentation, construction meetings, quality assurance inspections, and closeout and warranty. Pay application review. That's one big thing is contractor submits a pay application and it's 80, and I've been there, I've been on the contractor side. There's ways you want to try to grab money, but if they bill for 80% of the brickwork, before I initial that and approve it or give a recommendation to the county, it better be 80% done, or it's just strike through and say revise the pay application.
How many of your projects were completed within or under budget?
Lifetime, I would say, safely say every one of my projects, and I can think of one that has not been, is one that I did in Texas, and that was about 6 years ago. And when I say, if there's a day late or a dollar short, those are minute, but this was one that was a school, it was a $60 million school, and it was close to 3 months late on the project. And it was by no fault of the owner, the contractor. They got liquidated damages for it, documented, well documented, and the liquidated damages kept us from going to claims.
Have there been any projects you did not fully complete, and if there were, please explain them why?
From a project management standpoint, we've never been asked to get off a job, so I'd say every project we've been on, we have completed every job. Again, with 100% client satisfaction. Even the client that was that was late, he would still use this again today to continue services that was due to a large liquidation claim.
Have there been any incidents where you were suspended or terminated from a project, and if there were, please explain?
No, there has not.
Have you had any litigation or claims related to projects you were hired to oversee that have been settled in the past 5 years?
No.
Do you have any current pending litigation? If so,
No.
how often will you be on site to evaluate the progress of this project?
Myself, I envision, a minimum 1 to 2 days a week. My project manager, anywhere from 2 to 5 days a week, and then that balances out with whatever fee we kind of discussed. But having somebody sit on site all day long every day is not best use of the county's money. I would love to have somebody there for that billable opportunity, but it's not the best use of the county's dollars. So having anywhere from, again, 1 to 5 days a week, myself being 1 to 2, and the other guy, Jonathan, being there 3 to 5, that is the best use of the county's money and the best use of quality inspections throughout the project. So and that's things like critical milestones. We'll both be there on site. All meeting minutes or meetings, whether they're via Zoom these days or on site, we'll be there to attend all those and to manage the process. But if they're moving things like if they're moving dirt for 2 weeks, you don't need somebody there watching the dirt get wet during the day and dry during the night. So it's best use of county's money to really think about and accepting those fees to say, you know, this is the best use. We're gonna have, you know, one guy that's really looking at, both of us, for example, looking after this, but we're not charging for, let's say, 5 days a week full-time for 2 years, if that answers your question.
At this time, I'll open the floor up to commissioners for questions you might ask.
Did you say you was, where are you from? Are you from Knoxville?
No, I live in Nashville now.
Nashville.
Born and raised in small town Cape Girardeau, Missouri. My father's a commissioner there.
Well, I didn't know, I thought it was in Knoxville, you'd be traveling every day. I didn't know if it had that way.
We have an office here in Knoxville that I travel to during the week, and also one in Chattanooga. So.
When you spoke to a team, I'm looking at this right here.
Yes.
It says our team. How many, if you had up here on this project here, how many would you have up here? 2, 3?
There would be 2 on site that you would see for like behind the scenes, you know, pretty much the whole company I could use outreach to, but you know, a scheduler and estimator behind the scenes, those guys would be very periodically, you know, if they really needed to see it, but if we needed to focus on a change order that came in, and I do quite a bit of estimate myself, so it's not like I would have to reach out to them, but using our knowledge of market trends and diving into those resources from our estimator scheduler, just to say, is this looking right? Right now, I see the estimate being okay, but in your eyes, do you see the estimate being okay? So the 2 folks you would interact with the most would be myself and Jonathan, and then behind the scenes, there might be a couple others come in and out, but they would kind of be doing being the hamster on the
Have y'all done a job up here in Hamilton County or City of Martin before?
Not in Hamilton County. There might have been years ago with our heavy highway and infrastructure team for some design work.
It was the asphalt
Out
job.
here, I'm going to say, but again, it's not in the near term.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How many jail projects have you personally overseen?
Quite a few. If I count them, it's well over a dozen that I can think of in the past.
That you've personally been
That I've
involved?
personally been involved. I mean, my first jail project was in Benton County, Missouri, and I was 1 year out of college. Just so you know, I remember, thought I was going to pass out because I was sealing all the floors. The superintendent wanted me to, so as a project manager, he wanted me to go in at night and seal all the floors with the sealant. And as an eerie time, being in a jail cell, nobody around and just a couple guys working, and you're trying to not breathe in the fumes as you're rolling around the sealant on the floor.
What's been some of your biggest challenges that you face dealing with jails that you feel are helpful?
One of the first challenges is the client expectation. That's always right off the bat, is understanding clearly making sure we align what the client expectations are to make it that the architect sees that in line, and also the contractor. I mean, that right off the bat is if those parties, and as we're in the middleman there, is making sure we all see the final goal. And if there's one disconnect, it's a quick fall for a cost or schedule. And when I say that, that's, again, if I'm relaying something back to the contractor from the architect and we're meeting, and one of the county commissioners yourself said, no, that's not what we expected, then that puts a stop on that project. That puts, 2 to 3 weeks down the road before we figure out what the mitigation solution is for that. And so that's one thing, is really seeing a clear view of half of what the client needs. A lot of the other things are, again, with how well and secure this all is. So some of the federal prisons that I've worked on, do you want to have bars in the HVAC system, which I keep rolling my eyes at that typical project, because I was like, what guy's going to get out of a jail cell from a pick-proof caulk, and then fully sealed, CMU walls, and he's going to climb through the mechanical system that was this big, and then he's going to come do bars drilled in, and these bars cost, I think they were like $14,000 a bar, and they wanted them every so many feet. And I was driven by the U.S. Marshals, but just kind of advising the best use of some of the money. So if there's an option for cost savings, it's sitting down with your sheriff, anybody who's really involved with the project, and say, is this something that you really need? We can put this money to somewhere else in the building if you don't need, again, those kind of bars, or we don't need fully CMU walls, up to the ceiling. Maybe we stop at 8 foot. So I don't know if, hopefully that answers your question.
Any other questions?
Regarding change orders, what's some of your techniques you use to deal deal with change orders in a gray area? Could go either way. How do you?
The biggest thing with change orders is, and I worked as a change order manager for the Hoover Building DC, and that's all I did for is like a $2 billion renovation project in the Hoover Building, and all I did was change orders for that 2-year span, and it drove me crazy. But it's seeing the RFI that comes in. That's the first thing is RFI. Is that going to be cost driven? If I think it's going to be cost driven, then setting up that in a separate folder, and then knowing to the other ones just making sure they're documented in the drawings. But if it's cost driven, then going through providing an estimate, but then also looking back, is this what's in the specifications or the drawings? And that's where the gray area a lot of times comes in. Is where you have to pull up as an owner's rep and kind of say, contractor, this is clear in the specifications. I know your guy bid it per the drawings, because during bid day he does not have time to go through every specification book, but the specs supersede the drawings in this instant. So it comes down to then, if it's a $100,000 change order, my recommendation would be, Mr. Contractor, that's $100,000 towards, your eating cost. You're going to eat the cost, or sitting down with the county saying we've got a $100,000 change order. The specs were really gray. This was really gray. Contractor's willing to meet halfway in the middle in this instance, and it's then my recommendation at that point is like, I think we got to go after the full 100, or it is very gray. And that's also getting talking to the architect and engineer and understanding how they were, how their mind was working when they designed that product or that process. So. But a file.
I don't know why the doors don't open.
Creating a file system, again, for the county to have from every change order, RFI, cash flow documents. It's all filed in folders, well documented and controlled. That way, when we turn it over, all those, it's clear and concise for all the files being ready, USB or whatever you want to put it on. Those are all tracked and logged in that system. And a lot of times, if you set up the contract the right way with allowances, that's a way to be around change orders. So if the project's $40 million total budget, or $45 million total budget, you might have $2 million in allowances, and so your contractor's going to sign a job for $43 million. But those $2 million then is up to the owner to decide, we can build towards that allowance. It is a justified change order. It's not going to be called a change order. It's going to be called an allowance. It gets pulled out of allowance. That way you have to go back and re-pull or refund or reapprove additional dollars. So structuring that up front is a big portion during the procurement phase.
How much availability do you have for someone's call you like that? Is there a time frame how long it takes for us to get back to you, or you get back to us? Or?
As soon as my cell phone rings, if I've known that from day one, I will be ready to hit the job. Being in the construction industry all my life, you have calls at all hours, and sometimes you cringe because you're like, well, why is this guy calling me at 9 o'clock at night? It's going to be a downpour, and they just want to tell me that such and such is flooded out. But again, it's in my blood, so my cell phone's always on. My PM is always available, and then again, some of our field folks are right here too. That if we needed them to come over, in the middle of the night, they would be here as well. But once the phone rings, I'll be here.
Obviously, experience and professionalism you give us. What sets Volkert apart? Can you give us a quick synopsis of why you?
Elevator speech type, yes. I've worked for the big firms. This is what I call more of a boutique firm, small firm with a big punch. If you want, we don't just hire young engineers to put them out in the field to create billable hours. You're getting, again, somebody like myself, a professional engineer, Jonathan, with minimum 10, 15 years experience on the job site. Whereas some of the bigger firms and other firms may sell you a bill of goods, or they'll have inexperienced folks on the job site just to create a billable time.
So a personal touch. You're giving a personal touch.
Yes.
This is a loaded question probably, but what about cost savings? Can you typically give us an example of we hire Volkert, you're our project manager, Do you pay for yourself?
Yes, absolutely.
You will pay for your services.
Pay for our services, and probably more.
Value engineering, what's your take on value engineering?
Everybody hates that term, value engineering.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's necessary if the project has overruns, but I don't think, you don't want to cut costs just to cut costs. You want to make sure the quality is there. You don't want to go from a single plane blast-proof glass to from a double pane to a single plane just to save a couple dollars when you want to protect the entities that are in there. So cost savings, value engineering, that's all, it's necessary, but it needs to be worth it. And not just, but I'd say, hate to use the word, cheapen the building.
So you wouldn't just drive a change order or whatever just to save a few dollars if it's giving up quality?
No, sir. The idea of a change order value engineering session is if we're tracking over, but a lot of times I sit down with clients and create kind of what you look at as a shopping list, is let them know these are 15 items that total up to $20 million of cost savings. Obviously, let's check off 1, 2, and 3 because those are ridiculous. But let's look at maybe items 2 or 4, for example, and really dive in. Is this necessary? And it might take the sheriff getting involved or somebody else and say, I have to have that.
Okay. One last one for me. You spoke of fees, and you said something like 2 to 5 days or 3 to 5 days as a whole. You're gone for 3 or 4 days in a row. You're still here that 3 days, and you come in and this is all wrong. What happens?
That won't happen. But these day and age, you've got technology. A lot of times you can structure it to have a camera on the job site 24/7. That way, contractors actually love to do it. You encourage them during the bidding process. That way they can save for vandalism or anybody come on our job site to steal things. So you have the camera, you use the technology. But you can't say that you're just going to walk in and all of a sudden the terrazzo is going to be the wrong color on the floor. That's going to be a shocker. There will be some things that you walk in and say, they didn't put the corner channels on the drywall for extra security. We're going to take those down. But then that could also be, at this point, is it necessary to take those down? At this point, you're supposed to put them in, so give me an deductive change order. We're not going to go through and rip up these walls, even though you knew you're supposed to have them. Or it could be, no, you're going to rip them up and you're going to put them back in. There's going to be no cost change. There's going to be no time lost through the job site.
By you not being on site the 5 days, in other words, it could save money.
Yes.
In the same hand, you're saying your costs will pay for themselves, or your savings for our project.
Absolutely, yes. So
The role of the intern you talked about, maybe, what would that be? Can you elaborate on that?
yeah, I think that's it's a big thing. I've used it on quite a bit of projects, and it's me just growing up. My mom's a teacher. I have 3 sisters that are teachers, and the educational piece and kind of comes into play that there's a chance that the way I was brought up and raised, learning the trades, is kind of a lost thing nowadays. Almost, it seems like. I'm looking at my brother-in-law texting me, what do I do with my toilet's clogged up? He texts me out of nowhere, and I'm just, I don't have time to deal with this. But to bring an intern on and issue an ad in the paper and say we're bringing on an intern, that person, whether we decide to be here, kind of on site in the contractor's job trailer 5 days a week, or in our local office, 2 or 3 days, but primarily just to let them engage, let them feel the project, let them understand. It may be an individual who never thought he had a chance to go do anything, or maybe somebody coming out of college and was afraid to leave this town, city, county. But it gives them a chance, for the next 2 to 3 years. You're going to be right here at home. You're going to be working on this project. And there's cool things you can do with that. There's things like, with videos and YouTube, we can get him talking. We did this for a school one time, had the student talking, and we had feedback from the parents saying, oh my gosh, I saw him on TV, he did a YouTube, and we prepped him on, this is the safety aspect, this is the crane coming in, and he kind of did a little video, and we put it on the website that we had, and it just kind of, it brought a little bit of sense of engagement to the community, and to me, it's just really passionate for me to kind of educate and walk a kid up, when I say kid, a student or anybody else up that wants that experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. I want to make sure that if we get something in here, it's like a project manager. We're not Davidson County or Knox County, we're Little Hamilton County. We want to make sure we have someone here when we need them all the time. That's going to happen if there's something.
Yes, absolutely. This is a meaningful project for this town and the city. I mean, you're not going to build $40 to $60 million justice centers every 5 years. This is, you want, and again, with the intern, it brings some sense of ownership for that intern growing up in the city. It could be, the grandfather lived here for the last 70 years, and he's watching his grandson actually work on this building. And cool things like that is one thing we did at the federal courthouse with that. One of the federal courthouses is you do a plaque at the end of the job, and you budget $1,500 or $2,000, and you put the critical people on the plaque. Such and such firm, mechanical firm, everybody, the county commissioners, everybody that had a position on it, and then the intern, the project management team gets to put their names on that plaque, and it's something you go back to actually say, my name's right there. Whether he's telling his kids that or anything else, it's just, again, it creates a good sense of ownership that somebody local, and again, when I say local, we've got office here, but somebody that's actually from here that has a lot of roots, that takes that ownership. So, but again, myself, Jonathan, we're over here all the time, and you're going to see our faces all the time.
Any other questions?
Just
Mayor?
a few questions. What's your role with the new public safety complex?
We are the owner's reps. It's an interesting thing on that project was it started off at $62 million, and it was about $12 million over budget. And again, that was during early design with one of the architect firm and the engineering firm just kind of got crazy, and then more so was the visioning sessions that we dealt with the police department, the fire department, everything they started wanting and needing. It was kind of, okay, we got to slow this down. You're wanting 30,000 foot locker space. We started sitting down with the county mayor and the assistants, and you really need 30,000 square foot locker space. And he's like, no, we don't. So justifying the needs and the wants. But we were able to get that project back down to budget. But that was, we were brought on in design, and then we just had to have a lot of what we call visioning sessions. Just let's meet with the clerk's office, let's meet with the clerk's office, and see what they all want and need, and then start getting the architect to put that to pen to paper.
How long was that project?
It's still going on. Yes.
It's the old hospital site?
Yes. The complete demolition and rebuild for that
You
project.
mentioned something at the very start about where project manager will come in, let's say, start of September, let's just say, which is the construction drawings will be about done. And so that puts you guys at a disadvantage. Is that what you're saying as far as?
No. It's always interesting. I wouldn't say a disadvantage. I'd say it's just we could be behind the 8 ball a little bit, but it's the fact. We're bringing wealth of knowledge for me to comb through drawings real quickly and get a grasp of what's going on. That's going to be the easy part. It's really understanding the players that are really involved, because a lot of those players were sitting there like yourselves, or the sheriff's department or whatever else, and sitting down with the architect during the past year and a half. That continuity is already there. So coming in and not wanting to ruffle anybody's feathers, that's kind of a hard part, because all of a sudden you're the new kid on the block. And from the owner's standpoint, it's a big help for the owner to say, these are our reps. We are following their advice and recommendation. We're trusting them, and that gives us a little bit of stronghold to sit down and everybody listen to us. They're still going to listen to us, but a lot of times they're like, we've been talking to the sheriff for the past year and a half. Why don't I just call him? And it's, let's start a communication plan. Right now, it's if contractor or architect, you're not calling, county or the sheriff asking for this. If this is okay, we're coming through us so we can get it documented, and then we're going to come back and present it. But we got to do that tastefully, so we don't look like we're slowing down the project at all. So when I say it's kind of there's some savings opportunities with that term VE during the design, but there's also a lot more just getting to be not the new kid on the block at this phase. So and look, for this, fortunately, you don't have a contractor on board, so they're going through the procurement phase, which is good. So it's a team building, knowing what who the players are with everybody here, and then also knowing the architect, you know. It's a couple day session of sitting down with the architect, Zoom meetings, everything else, and they know we're part of the team. You know, I'm not gonna try to call you out on anything, architect, the design's there, let's mitigate the problem, let's make it work, and let's get the contractor on board and find a solution.
So how would you make sure, I guess, and that might not be the right terminology, but just maybe prevent a duplication of services between, say, the A&E firm and what they've done and what you guys would do?
When it comes down to an architect firm, they're known for designing, and what, you know, putting the design work in the building. The actual management and being the person that, understanding the cost, the real-time cost, and understanding what the contractor's going through. You know, ultimately, once the construction starts, he's worried about, you know, is this kind of his schedule, and is his design gonna get, how many change orders and RFIs is he gonna get during that process? And you really want him focusing on that part of it, answering those diligently. You don't want him out there battling, or talking to the contractor saying, you really can't start that work yet because we're not ready to engage in this RFI. This change order hasn't been approved. You need the architect focus on this RFI was driven by a change order, and we need him to focus on that design and get it done in the 3 days time frame. So it's you're not going to duplicate services because we're your ultimate adversaries for the project, as if we're acting as if we're the owner. Whereas the architects, he's going to act, and again, I hope there's no architects in the room, but they're acting as the architect and design team, and then you've got the contractors team. And you really want that person to be the person that kind of brings it all together. Very seldom, the only duplicate service a lot of times is when it comes down to meeting minutes and notes. And if it's already in the architect's documents and contract documents, then we enforce those meeting minutes, you know, they publish them. They send them, they'll compare our notes and your notes, and then we'll get them all out. Or if it's in the contract, but a lot of times you don't want the contractor issuing meeting notes because they'll put whatever they want in there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's very seldom, sometimes architects will say we're duplicating services, but very seldom is they start enjoying our services because they really like to be able to focus on their design. And we're going to get that, get it to completion.
Any other questions? If not, we appreciate your interest in
Yes, sir.
Cameron County.
Thank you all.
I would like to say to what Mike said, I appreciate the willingness to share your professionalism with a young kid here. Here the tech school is really big with push here. College is not for everybody. And like you said, some people can't unstop it from others. So anyway, I do appreciate that. I do appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for your time.